Talk TV live from the Talk Radio studios. It's Phil Dave in for Christo on Early Breakfast until 7 o'clock this morning. I'm joined in the studio by Paul Britton, who is a leading criminal defence lawyer and founder of Britain and Time. And on the line, I'm delighted to say as well that we are joined by Dr. Roger Gievolb, who is a personal finance expert and CEO of Fair Money. Now, before the break, gents, we were talking about the energy price cap increase that is heading our way and how people are going to cope with it. There's a text message here that I'd like both of you to react to, please, because I think it's somewhat poignant, to say the least. Carol in Lowestoft says, "Morning, Phil. I just wish more interviewers would say to members of Parliament when they ask, do you understand the pain people are facing over energy, etc., they need to add, considering you will be nice and warm and fed this winter, as the public will pay for all your bills. No one addresses this, besides the fact they are all multi-millionaires and multi-property owners. Honestly, I do not think they are listening because they are not in normal life situations. They do not understand at all. That is my opinion." Paul, how do you respond to that? Because I think Carol's spot on.
Well, Phil, I mean, we were talking about that, weren't we, earlier? And we get a £400 rebate, but our energy bills double, and then they're going to go up to, it's predicted to be £6,000 by April next year. And what do the politicians say? They're going to give us £1,000 back. Well, I totally agree with Carol. It's just not enough money. They are out of touch. They must be out of touch. It's the only logical thing that you can come to if they're offering these derisory amounts of money when you look at how much things have gone up by.
Yeah, Dr. Roger, I'd like to think that you would agree with that as well.
I agree completely with Paul. It all started with Rishi Sunak offering us 5 pence on a price of petrol and doing nothing to ensure that that was actually done. And a survey that we ran showed that more than 80% of people couldn't even find a forecourt that they use in their neighborhood generally that had done that. But the 5p didn't even begin to touch the sides. I mean, there are 2 things you asked before that the government really should be doing, and what is shocking is the absolute silence of all the politicians, including our leading candidates, our 2 leading candidates, on all of these matters. Number 1 is petrol. Some 80% of the price of a liter of petrol goes to the government in tax, 53% of it on fuel duty, and another 30% of it on VAT. And the VAT is not just on the fuel, but it's on the fuel duty. It's a tax on tax. And of course, we pay for our petrol with the pounds in our pocket on which we've already been taxed via PAYE or otherwise. So it's a triple taxation. They could easily suspend the VAT element or some of that for 6 or 12 months to give people some breathing space to get to work and go visit their families. But it's not even been mentioned. If you look through the debates and most of the hustings that I've examined, you won't find the word petrol. It's simply unbelievable. It's simply unbelievable. The second thing that should be done is cutting interest rates. They never should have raised interest rates. How can you put a burden on someone today who has to go, I don't want to go out and borrow money that I don't want to borrow, that I have to borrow to survive, and then be charged double what I would have been charged a few months ago.
You pay for the privilege of borrowing on someone else's behalf.
So you're listening, as I and Paul are listening, day after day after day to, I'm sorry, guys, you know, I'm sure you're very well-meaning and hopefully one of you will become a great prime minister, but listening to your waffle and platitudes over and over and over again, while Boris is sitting on the beach drinking ouzo, and Nadim is saying, yes, we must do something. I am so sick of listening to all of this drivel when these 2 issues could be dealt with in 5 minutes, petrol and interest rates, and take your foot off our throat, please. So yes, I agree with you, Paul.
Yeah, it's absolutely shocking. It really, the fact that I'm not being funny, but we can solve a lot of the issues within a few minutes of just talking about it, and yet the powers that be say they can't.
Well, no, they don't even say they can't. They don't. It's worse, Phil. They don't even mention it.
They don't acknowledge it.
And why is the media not calling them to account? Even in debates, Why aren't they being called to account? And things, I'm sorry to paint a bleak picture, but I think that President Putin has designs, and all we're doing by crippling the economy, wrecking our government, is playing into his hands. It's insane.
Well, I actually looked at the price of electricity per kilowatt in Russia at the moment, and despite all of these sanctions, the Russian people are paying 15p, whereas we're paying 40, and it's going to go up to 60. So it's not affecting them like it's affecting us.
Both oil and gas are going to double. I've said on programs here before, we are a ship adrift in a raging sea with the captain and crew fighting with swords on the bridge, and paying no attention whatsoever to us.
What it boils down to is that we need to, this is going to sound like a sort of a victory speech almost, but we need to take charge of our own destiny. It's as simple as that. We need to become energy efficient in this country and self-sufficient at that. And until we get a grip on that and make it happen, I fear that we're just going to keep looking at situations like this and just despairing every 2 seconds. This is from Mark, who's in Lancashire, who texts to say, we simply need to go back to paying for what we've used. This system of paying an inflated subscription, quote unquote, fee every month for energy, whether we use it or not, is a broken model and needs to be scrapped. And I think that's exactly what you were saying a little earlier on, Roger, as well, as if we just go back to almost paying for what we use rather than going on direct debits, that should help people.
Yes, but I wasn't, Mark is right, but I wasn't saying it's a broken model. It is a useful tool, but one needs to understand how it should be used. Again, if you go to my video, GWOB and direct debit, Google those 3 words and you'll get it. The direct debit is an accommodation by you to your supplier, not by them to you. They have nothing to say about it. You can cancel it anytime you want. You can generally call up your bank and say, look, they shouldn't have taken that £500. Please transfer it back to my account. And under what's called the direct debit indemnity, they must do that. The bank must send the money back. Or you can use your mobile banking and transfer it back yourself. And the energy company can't say boo. Now, they may turn around and say, well, look, we're very worried about you in the future. I'm sure some energy companies will try to pull this. We're very worried about you. And, you're not responsible enough to pay your bills. So if you don't give us adequate security, we're going to cut you off. You'll have to go to another supplier. But it's still worth trying and talking to them. Mark is absolutely right. Don't cancel direct debit. Just take your money back every month as soon as they've taken it.
The direct debit can be flexed up and down in the app anyway, or the website that the energy provider.
Well, within reason, I believe it can. Dr. Roger, I fear that we could talk about this all day, but sadly, time is against us. But thank you very much indeed for your expertise and your thoughts this morning. That's Dr. Roger GWOB, personal finance expert and CEO of Fair Money. And I'm afraid that, Paul, this is where we must say thank you to you as well. We really appreciate you coming in and